Your good deed reached an angel you never expected they're coming for you. Stop. Don't move. Don't blink, because something already happened, and you weren't even paying attention when it did. Weeks ago, maybe months, maybe longer than you guessed, you did something small enough to forget, and it reached somewhere it was never supposed to reach. Not a person, not exactly. Something further out. Something that's been watching the quiet ledger of who actually gives without needing credit, and you just made out a list you didn't know existed. You think I'm being dramatic? Let me tell you what happens when an act of kindness slips past the normal channels and lands somewhere it was never designed to land. There's a ledger. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, just structurally. The way every system that tracks anything eventually develops a record of what actually happened versus what got announced. Most kindness gets logged in the visible ledger, the one everyone can see. The donation with your name on the plaque, the favor called in later, the good deed done loudly enough that it circles back around to benefit the person who did it. That ledger is full, and almost nobody considers his action being watched by anything that matters. But there's a second ledger, quieter. Almost nobody makes it onto that one, because almost nobody does something decent without checking, even subconsciously, whether it'll be noticed. You did. Somewhere in the last while, you did something you don't even remember clearly now, something that cost you a little and returned you nothing, and you did it anyway without narrating it to yourself as a good deed while it was happening. That's the only qualification. Not the size of the act, the absence of the performance around it. That's what got picked up. Let me tell you about the three others, though I can't give you names because names stop mattering at this level of the story. The first was a nurse in 1934 who stayed 2 extra hours with a stranger who had no family coming, not because anyone assigned her to, not because anyone would ever know, but because leaving felt wrong and staying felt obvious. She never told anyone. She went home, made dinner, went to bed. What she didn't know is that the person she stayed with carried that 2 hours forward into every act of patience they extended to strangers for the next 40 years, and every one of those acts carried a small trace of her in it, multiplying outward into rooms she'd never enter and lives she'd never hear about. The second was a boy in 1961 who gave away his lunch on a day he was hungry too, and told no one, not because he was being modest, but because it genuinely didn't occur to him that it was something worth mentioning. That boy grew up and never became famous, never wrote a book about kindness, never built an organization. He just kept doing that quietly for the rest of his life, and somewhere in the ledger that what he talks about, that pattern got noticed the way a signal gets noticed against background noise, not because it was loud, but because it never stopped. The third reached someone in 2003 with 4 sentences that cost nothing and meant everything, said to a stranger on a night that stranger later admitted was the worst of their life. The person who said those 4 sentences doesn't remember saying them. The person who received them remembers every word still, decades later, and has repeated some version of that exact kindness to at least a dozen other strangers since, each one of them a small echo of a moment the original person has completely forgotten. Now what you did, whatever it was, however small it felt in the moment, reached someone the same way. And here's the part that should actually land more than any mystical framing around it. It doesn't matter that you don't remember it clearly. It doesn't matter that you never checked to see if it mattered. That's exactly why it did. Here's what's different about kindness that isn't performed for an audience. It doesn't stop when the moment ends. Performed kindness has a shelf life. It lasts exactly as long as someone's watching. Exactly as long as the story is being told. But the kind you gave without narrating it, the kind that happened and then you simply moved on with your day, that kind doesn't decay. It gets carried. Someone picks it up without you knowing, without you being there to witness it, and they carry it into rooms you'll never see, into conversations you'll never be part of, into decisions that get made, because once, a while back, someone showed them something was possible that they hadn't believed was possible before. That's the angel in the title, if we're going to use that word honestly instead of decoratively. Not a literal being with wings watching a ledger. The angel is the version of that person your kindness reached, the version of them that exists now because of what you did, carrying something forward that they didn't ask for, change the shape of what they were capable of giving other people. That version of them is coming for you now, metaphorically, and in every way that actually matters, literally, because they spent this whole time looking for a way to close the loop, to find you, to make sure you know that the moment you've probably forgotten by now was the exact moment that mattered most to them. You're in what feels like an ordinary stretch of your life right now, going about your days the way you always have, giving small things away without tracking them, without expecting anything back. And somewhere out there, someone has been carrying what you gave them for longer than you guess, turning it over, passing pieces of it on to other people, building a whole chain of small, decent acts that trace it directly back to a moment you probably wouldn't even recognize if someone was describing to you now. This is why certain people look at you a beat too long when they meet you, without either of you understanding why. This is why some strangers trust you instantly, in a way that doesn't match how cautious they usually are with people they just met. Something in them recognizes something in you, not consciously, but at a level where people register warmth that's real instead of performed. You've been quietly building a signature, a frequency, whatever word makes sense to you, made entirely out of moments you never bothered to remember, because remembering them wasn't the point. Here's what the resistance to this looks like. Because there is resistance, and it's worth naming honestly instead of pretending kindness like this is always rewarded cleanly and immediately. Sometimes you'll give without ever seeing a return. Sometimes the people you help will disappear from your life entirely, and you'll never know what happened to the moment you gave them, whether it mattered, whether they carried it forward, or let it evaporate. That's the cost of giving without conditions. You don't get to audit the outcome. You give it, and then you let it go, trusting that most of it lands somewhere useful even though you'll never see the landing. Most people can't tolerate that uncertainty for long. Most people, even generous ones, eventually start needing some confirmation that their kindness is doing something. And when that confirmation doesn't come quickly enough, they either stop giving as freely or they start performing the giving so at least they get the visible credit even if they lose the invisible impact. You didn't do that. You kept giving into the uncertainty, kept extending decency into situations with no guaranteed return. And that consistency, more than any single act, is what actually built the thing that's now finding its way back to you. So here's what's actually happening, stripped of the mystical language and left as plainly as it deserves to be left. Someone you helped in a moment small enough that you've genuinely forgotten it has been carrying that moment for longer than you'd expect, and they've been looking in whatever way they can to close that loop. Maybe that looks like a message you'll get soon. Maybe it looks like a stranger who treats you with unexplainable warmth because they heard about you secondhand from someone you helped once, who told the story to someone else, who eventually told it to them. Maybe it never becomes a literal encounter at all, and instead it just keeps traveling outward, invisible to you, doing exactly what it was always going to do, whether or not you ever found out about it. Either way, understand what you actually did, and let it matter to you the way it deserves. You gave something away without checking if it counted. That's the rarest kind of kindness there is, and it's exactly the kind that ends up mattering the most, precisely because it was never designed to be seen. The version of you that exists in someone else's memory right now, built entirely out of a moment you've forgotten, is more real and more permanent than almost anything you'll ever do that gets noticed and applauded in the moment. Let that be enough. You don't need the receipt to know it happened. You don't need the confirmation to know it mattered. Somewhere, someone is still carrying what you gave them, and they're not done carrying it yet. That's not mysticism. That's just what happens every time someone gives without checking whether it counts, and it counted anyway.